Welcome back, Warriors. It's me, Linda B. Thank you all so much for joining me here today, Warriors. I'm sure you've heard by now that our government, the United States, just struck Iran. That's right, in an operation called Midnight Hammer, striking and destroying 3 major Iranian nuclear facilities just late last night. So before we get into this video, I want you all to remember to smash the like button, comment, share, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Make sure you select all notifications so you never ever miss a video that I post. And I kindly ask you to stick around to the very end. Let's get into it. All right. Our government just struck Iran. Now, I got some clips here. Obviously, I have Fox News. I have some other footage and some older footage too. And we're going to hear from the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, and of course, our President, Donald J. Trump. But we're also going to go back a little bit into history. We're going to talk about another president, former President Barack Hussein Obama. But let's go ahead and get into it. I just heard about this. I just got off vacation, so I'm going in hard and strong. I know I missed a little bit of footage that I normally would put out, but I appreciate you guys understanding the fact that I need a little R&R every now and then. But I am going to share with you right now, Fox News.
Iran. The commander-in-chief, President Donald Trump, authorizing the U.S. military to strike 3 of Iran's most lethal nuclear sites last night. We know of no human casualties, but Iran's nuclear infrastructure appears to be badly damaged in the biggest B-2 stealth bomber action we have ever seen, including obliterating Iran's most significant uranium-enriched Fordo site built underground in the mountains in Iran. Here's President Trump last night.
Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. For 40 years, Iran has been saying death to America, death to Israel. But if peace does not come quickly, we will go after those other targets with precision, speed, and skill.
Joining me now in his first interview since the U.S. action is the Secretary of State of America, Secretary Marco Rubio. Mr. Secretary, thank you for being here. Are we now at war with Iran?
No, we're not. This is not a war against Iran. This is very simple. 67 days ago, the President of the United States sent the Iranians a letter, and it said, you're not going to have nuclear weapons. You're not going to have a militarized nuclear program. Let's negotiate. I want to do this diplomatically. I want to do this peacefully. They tried to play him along the way they've played every American president for the last 35 years. And, the president told them, if we don't get a deal, which is what he wanted, then I'll have to handle it differently. And that's what he did last night. He handled it differently. But that was an Iranian choice. We didn't make that choice. They did. By playing games with Donald Trump, they made a huge mistake. And President Trump acted last night. And I think the world today is safer and more stable than it was 24 hours ago. And a bunch of these countries putting out statements condemning us, privately, they all agree with us that this needed to be done. They got to do what they got to do for, their own public relations purposes. But the only people in the world that are unhappy about what happened in Iran last night is the regime in Iran.
Have you heard from anyone in Iran, and are you expecting retaliation?
Well, if they retaliate, it'll be the worst mistake they've ever made. Look, we can fly in and out of Iran at will. We went in last night. The president sent our military forces from halfway across the world, went in, conducted this operation, left. Not a shot was fired against us. They didn't even know what had happened. By the time we left, the planes were out of their airspace before they finally started realizing they'd been hit. So it would be a terrible mistake if Iran retaliates. But that's not our goal. We are not declaring war on Iran. We're not looking for war on Iran. But if they attack us, then I think we have capabilities they haven't even seen yet. It would be a terrible mistake on their part. And frankly, it's not what we hope for or wish.
So do you all feel like this will actually cause Iran to retaliate? Because President Trump has always been very clear about what he wants and what he expects. He articulates it, and what people have seen from his first term and also carrying over into this second term is that when he says something, he actually means it. He doesn't just say something just to be saying it. He acts upon it. One of the statements or one of the slogans was, promises made, promises kept. Okay. Iran would be making a horrible mistake. We have struck and obliterated 3 of the most strategic nuclear facilities, obliterated it. And as far as we know, no lives have been lost. We don't know what they will do, how they will respond. But we are ready, I believe, and I believe we have God on our side, that we are ready no matter what they plan to do. So what do you all think? How do you think Iran will respond? I've been praying about this very thing, and I am praying that they just fold and say, okay, all right, and actually mean it. Like, don't just say it to try and catch us off guard and do some kind of strike against us like we did against them. I mean, I just pray that they say it and actually mean it. But what do you guys think?
We want now is to ensure that Iran never has nuclear weapons. If what they want is a civil nuclear program where they have power plants like every other a lot of other countries in the world have, they can do that. That's the deal that's been offered to them. They rejected it. They played us. They tried to play us, I should say. They wouldn't respond to our offers. They disappeared for 10 days. And now, you know, the president had to take action as a response.
And the response included strategic ambiguity. Can you walk us through the plan in terms of how it was deceptive, not allowing the Iranians to understand what was really taking place?
Well, ultimately, when we do these things, it's because we care about the safety and security of our troops, of our airmen, and all those who are supporting these missions. So, you know, obviously, the element of surprise is important in military tactics. In this particular, now, I don't think the Iranians or anyone should have been under any mystery. The president said very clearly, we have 60 days to make progress on a deal, and if we don't, I'm going to deal with it differently. But in terms of what people call deception and surprise and things of this nature, the core of that is not the success. The mission was going to be successful no matter what. The core of that was protecting our servicemen and women who are in harm's way and conducting that mission. That's the most important part. And they went in, they did what they needed to do with precision and skill that no other military in the world can do. And they left. And they were well outside of Iranian airspace before the regime even realized what had happened. And that was the goal here, and that was achieved. You know, these planes came from halfway across the world, and no one saw them coming. And that's a huge credit to Pete Hegseth and General Kane and General Kurilla and obviously our commander-in-chief for pulling that off.
Well, the president said in a post recently that he knows where the supreme leader is hiding. But that he was not ready to take him out yet. What can you tell us about your expectations with regard to regime change in Iran?
Well, that's certainly not the goal of what we're working on here. The goal is stated very clearly in a letter the president sent the supreme leader about 65, 67 days ago. And in a letter he said, you're not going to have a nuclear weapon. Let's negotiate peacefully a solution. We can make a really good deal that's good for Iran, good for America, good for the world. If you don't, however, then I'm going to have to deal with this differently.
It was very clear. You know, the great thing about President Trump, he doesn't use a lot of fancy language. He just goes straight to the point. Very plain, very clear, like a 10-year-old can understand it. I mean, you need to respond in this number of days. We need a deal. If you don't, we will respond differently. Okay, and you should know what that differently could mean. All right, so the supreme leader was sent this letter. They knew very well what they were dealing with, but according to Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Iran was playing games. They were acting one way, was doing something else. That's why whenever we get this peace deal per se, let's pray that it is actually authentic, that it is actually genuine, that there is no hanky-panky shenanigans going on behind the scenes. But I also wanted to bring up a couple of other things in this live stream. And I know I usually don't do a live at this time, but I appreciate you guys joining me on this. So I'm just going to read a couple of posts here. Here we have, I just like to read little posts. And it is saying Donald Trump ended Iran's nuclear capabilities in one single night, and no American troops were harmed in the process. This was a masterful operation, not a single leak either. He gave them 2 weeks and struck 3 days later. Wow. And this is a list of people, of nations coming to the aid of Iran due to the U.S. strikes. Blank. And it states right here from Donald Trump from his Truth Social: we have completed our very successful attack on the 3 nuclear sites in Iran, including Fordo. And Fordo was their most lethal one. And they had, nuclear facilities underground in a mountain in the Fordo one. Natanz and Esfahan, all planes are now outside of Iran airspace. A full payload of bombs was dropped on the primary site, Fordo. All planes are safely on their way home. Congratulations to our great American warriors. There is not another military in the world that could have done this. Now is the time for peace. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Okay, that comes from our president. All right, so I do want to bring in some footage as well from Secretary of State Pete Hegseth, what he has to say.
This is a plan that took months and weeks of positioning and preparation so that we could be ready when the President of the United States called. It took a great deal of precision. It involved misdirection and the highest of operational security. Our B-2s went in and out of downtown Tehran, of these nuclear sites, in and out and back without the world knowing at all. In that way, it was historic. A strike that included the longest B-2 Spirit bomber mission since 2001 and the first operational employment of the MOP, a massive ordnance penetrator. The mission demonstrated to the world the level of joint and allied integration that speak to the strength of our alliance and our joint forces. As President Trump has stated, the United States does not seek war, but let me be clear. We will act swiftly and decisively when our people, our partners, or our interests are threatened. Iran should listen to the President of the United States and know that he means it, every word.
He does mean it, every single word. He just means it. And I think when people see that firmness, when these other countries see that firm hand, that very quick, decisiveness that President Trump has, that they will realize, okay, he's really not playing with us. So we need, men have, manly men, alpha males. I'm not familiar with the supreme ruler, the Iranian regime. I'm barely able to keep up with our own government. But I do believe once they see that decisiveness, and most importantly of anything, we have God on our side, and we know what God says about Israel. Okay, so, and I just want to say, this is part of the Iranian-Israel war. And for those of you who still may not know, I do attend a Messianic synagogue where I reside. And we believe in Jesus as Lord, all that, everything, but we worship in a very Hebraic way and worship on Saturday. Okay. And I have a rabbi, a legit Jewish rabbi. So my thinking, for some people that don't support Israel, they may not understand why I do, but this is why I do. I believe the Bible and what it says, and then I attend, like I said, a Messianic synagogue. I have a rabbi who is 100% Jewish, and that is just how it is in my life. Me and my family worship there weekly. Okay, so I know where my support lies, and I want America to always be a friend to Israel, an ally. I don't necessarily, according to the Bible says all nations eventually are going to turn against Israel. All means all, and that's like a scary thought to even think about, quite scary. But I want to bring up another president, former president, Barack Hussein Obama. Remember when he was president, he gave $1.7 billion to Iran in January of 2016, just a year before he was to leave office. $1.7 billion. And it was said that this was in regards to some 1979 Iranian arms deal in which the United States was supposed to deliver and never did. And so he was giving them money plus interest. You know, it's hard to know if things are true, but that's what the reports are that are out there. There are some other things that are saying that's contradictory to that. But that was $1.7 billion to someone who is a threat with their nuclear weapons. And you know how we feel about Barack Hussein Obama, right? If that's his real name. But that's what happened. And I'm going to show you some historical clips right now. And you guys probably remember this. You probably remember. But I am going to share these with you right now.
Is responding for the very first time to questions about the controversial $400 million cash payment to Iran. It was one of the issues that came up at his news conference yesterday at the Pentagon. The president also discussed America's new airstrikes against ISIS in Libya. Major Garrett is at the White House with the president's pushback against Donald Trump and other critics. Major, good morning.
Good morning. President Obama called talk of ransom paid to Iran for U.S. hostages a transfer that was carried out in big bundles of non-U.S. currency, the stuff of spy novels. The president said it was actually much more boring than that. Money that was owed to Iran in the first place and simply couldn't be transferred any other way. After reviewing military efforts against ISIS in Iraq and Syria,
good afternoon, everybody.
President Obama for the first time addressed questions about a $400 million payment to Iran at the time 4 detained Americans were released.
We announced these payments in January, many months ago. There wasn't a secret. This wasn't some nefarious deal. We do not pay ransom for hostages. We do not pay ransom. We didn't here, and we won't in the future.
As yet, the administration has refused to say if the plane ferrying the Americans from Iran to Switzerland departed before or after the currency arrived, deepening the sense Iran viewed it as ransom. The president suggested the nature of the payment, not the timing, made the story intriguing.
Maybe because it kind of feels like some spy novel or, some, crime novel, because cash was exchanged. The reason cash was exchanged is because we don't have a banking relationship with Iran.
In the fight against the Islamic State, Mr. Obama said the tide is turning.
ISIL has not had a major successful offensive operation in either Syria or Iraq in a full year.
But the president took painful note of ISIS-inspired terror attacks in Europe and at home.
As we've seen, it is still very difficult to detect and prevent lone actors or small cells of terrorists who are determined to kill the innocent and are willing to die.
The president also touted coalition airstrikes that took off the battlefield 3 top ISIS commanders and intelligence gained from former ISIS strongholds in Iraq and Syria. Josh, it was by far the most optimistic assessment of the battle against the Islamic State, and one that obviously flies in the face of unrelenting criticism.
All right, so I just wanted to show you that historical clip, and I do want to pause for a moment to answer someone's question. They asked me, do I consider myself an Israelite? That is, who wants to know? I don't look at myself like that. I just look at myself as a believer. I'm Gentile. I don't get into who's Jewish, who's an Israelite, I don't. We're grafted in as Gentile believers into the tree of Israel. We're grafted in, and I'm a believer. So I know I'm Gentile. I don't get into the roots like I'm Jewish or Israelite, or I'm just a believer. I just love God. I'm trying to love him more and people more. That's it. I keep my faith very simple. I don't really get into all of that. And a lot of you have your comments about Obama. So we have Bonnie Bulow. Obama is part of the Muslim Brotherhood. Vince Everett Ellison breaks it down, and he said that Obama is lying. He did pay it. I am so grateful for this podcast, Linda B. Thank you. I remember this, liar in chief. Thank you, Linda B. I can't stand Obama. I never trusted Obama. He hates our country. Well, I told you guys when I first saw him back in, 2006, I guess, before he became president, the first time I wasn't thinking anything. Actually, I looked and I heard the Lord say he's Muslim. And I'm like, I don't know what to do with that information. But I just didn't vote for him. And we didn't have any good choices because we had rhinos and Democrat, a rhino and a Democrat. We did not have any good choices. Okay. You had Romney, not good. You had McCain, not good. Just not good. We had no good choices. So we were going to be messed up one way or the other. But to God be the glory. Okay, because God spares his people. But I also want to share with you something else. You know, I like to tie everything together with current clips as well as historical clips. I do want to share with you this.
Honoring President Obama. He is the founder of ISIS. He's the founder of ISIS. Okay? He's the founder. He founded ISIS.
Now, you know, it's so hard to know if this is real or not. I'm like, I never heard that he found it. I mean, this is just a clip that I saw. I don't know if it's AI. I mean, I'm just, I don't know. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that he did. I don't want anybody saying, I'm saying allegedly. I didn't say that. This is what this particular clip said. Maybe it's true. If you guys can verify that for me, if that is a true clip, because you don't know what you're looking at these days. But I am so glad that we were able to dismantle those, you know, nuclear facilities in Iran. I just want us to be prayerful about what we should, this whole situation. We just need to be prayerful. Just keep it 100% real and prayerful. I'm going to finish up this news clip from Fox, and I'm going to read your comments.
The Iranians didn't like the letter. They didn't respond to it. They ultimately entered into fake negotiations and tried to play him along. In essence, they thought they could do with President Trump what they've done with presidents in the past and get away with it. And they found out last night that they can't. And the world found out last night that you can't. And that's important, not just on this issue, but for so many other issues happening around the world. I think that what we are seeing is that this is a president that tells you what he's going to do, and then he does it. And I think that to a lot of people, including the Iranian regime, is shocking.
What are your expectations in terms of Iran's nuclear capabilities today?
Well, they're certainly degraded. Look, at the end of the day, if Iran is committed to becoming a nuclear weapons power, I do think it puts the regime at risk. I really do. I think it would be the end of the regime if they tried to do that. It's certainly been set back from a technical standpoint, not just due to what we did last night, but obviously the Israelis have done incredible work in advance as well. But ultimately, they have to make a decision. It's a very simple decision. If what they want is nuclear reactors so they can have electricity, there are so many other countries in the world that do that, and they don't have to enrich their own uranium. They can do that. But if what they want is a secret program buried in the mountain where no one can see it and inspectors can only come when they say they can come, if that's what they want, then they're going to have big problems, because this is a dangerous, violent, radical regime. Not the Iranian people. We have no problem. We didn't hit Iranian people last night. We hit nuclear facilities. And if what they want is some secret program that looks nothing like the civil nuclear programs around the world, it looks a lot like you're trying to build a bomb, they're going to continue to have problems, not just with us, but with many other countries in the world.
Problems like what? What do you mean?
Like the problems they're facing right now. Listen, why do we have bases in Saudi Arabia and Kuwait and Qatar and UAE? All of those bases are there to help protect those countries from Iran. Why did Hezbollah exist? Because of Iran. What does Hamas exist? Because of Iran. How do the Houthis exist? Because of Iran. Who built the IEDs that maimed and killed American soldiers in Iraq? Iran. They're behind every problem in this region. They are the sole source of instability in the entire Middle East, and the world's been paying a price for this for 40-something years.
Do you all believe, I mean, I know, okay, I'm going to just break this up a little bit, okay, because Secretary of State Marco Rubio just simply stated that Iran is the main problem in the Middle East. That country is the source of all of that region's problems, according to the Secretary of State. So do you all believe, I know most of you all are Christian who follow me here, but do you believe that the Antichrist is going to come out of Iran? I mean, what do you believe concerning that? I mean, I don't know, because they are simply always the issue. Okay, I don't know what I believe. I'm not really following that. That question just came to my mind, and I wanted to know what you guys thought.
Imagine those people having a nuclear weapon, just one nuclear weapon, or even the capability to being on the threshold of having a nuclear weapon. That's what the world was facing. That is unacceptable. President Trump did the world a favor last night, and now Iran should sort of wake up, the Iranian regime should wake up and say, okay, if we really want nuclear energy in our country, there's a way to do it. That offer's still there. We're prepared to talk to them tomorrow and start working on that. Steve Witkoff has traveled extensively around the world trying to reach that deal with them, but they play too many games. They play way too many games, and now they found out.
The president has said many times no nuclear weapons, but the ultimate goal also happens to be no biological weapons, chemicals, no drones, no proxy warfare. Do you believe that the Iranians will follow that? And
before she finishes that statement, Secretary of State just said they were playing games in Iran, but they found out. Now, I'm sorry, but I thought about that FAFO. You found out. You mess around, you're going to find out.
You'll achieve the ultimate goal of success here, long term.
Well, I don't know what they're going to decide to do next. If they're being rational, I think they realize, if what they want is a country that has a nuclear energy program, they can have that. I mean, many countries around the world, I don't like the regime, but we're not into the regime change business here. We're into the safety and security of the United States business. So that's a choice they'll have to make. I hope they're being rational in their decision making. But I think the most important thing I hope they realize is the game is up. Okay, they have played the world for 40-something years with these nuclear talks and this, delaying things. They got a crazy deal out of John Kerry when he was Secretary of State under the Obama administration, where they got billions of dollars. And by the way, agreed to something that allowed them to continue to build their missile capacity and sponsor terrorism. They've been playing the world for 40-something years. They're not going to play President Trump. And they found out last night that when he says he's going to do something, he'll do it. And
he does do it. They keep finding out, they FAFO. But, again, back to Obama, because I like to tie things together. Everything was done sequentially. And I know you guys already know this. You had Rhino, George W. Bush, then after him. And there's a connection between him and Obama. You got to watch me on my other platforms to find that out. And then after Obama, President Trump, the past few decades, has been saying he really doesn't want to be president, but if it got so bad that he would, I believe when he saw Barack Obama, he looked and said, oh my goodness, it has gotten so bad. That is why I believe he ran. Yeah, it got so bad. He ran up against Hillary, and what's going on with the Clintons. If you don't know, I'm sure you know. And this whole thing with the money being funneled, and some of you are saying it's more than $1.7 billion. And the media hides this or contorts it or says this is something else going on. It's not just giving them money so they can continue their arsenal. That Barack Obama was a mess.
And he doesn't want to do it. It's not his first choice. But it's the only choice. That's the only choice the Iranian regime left us, because they play too many games. They use diplomacy to hide behind and obfuscate and think they can buy themselves time. They think they're cute. They're not cute. And they're not going to get away with this stuff. Not under President Trump.
The Europeans have been feckless pretty much throughout this conflict in the last several weeks. What are your expectations for our partners and allies in Europe?
Well, look, I think the Europeans, particularly the Germans, the French, and the Brits, have made very clear that Iran cannot have nuclear weapons. In fact, I think the French, for the first time, have kind of leaned forward even more and said they can't even have an enrichment capability. There are existing sanctions under the old JCPOA that we're no longer a part of, but they remain a part of. Iran is in complete violation. Okay, and so those three countries have to make a decision, I know later than October of this year, whether to put sanctions back on Iran, snap them back. And
so they're out of order. Iran is out of order. They're not supposed to be doing what they're doing. There was an agreement that they weren't supposed to have any kind of certain nuclear capabilities and things of that nature. So Secretary of State Marco Rubio is saying by October of this year, other countries that are part of that JCPOA agreement have to decide what they're going to do with Iran or Iran, however you want to say it, because they're non-compliant. This country has a history, in my opinion, of never doing what they're saying they're going to do. They say one thing and do another. They have a history of that. And Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, was saying that they were playing games with President Trump, playing games. Well, President Trump is not about playing games. He doesn't want to start a war. It's the last thing he ran on. He ran on ending wars. He overpromised. Let's just be clear. He thought that he could do it that quickly. He said it will be done in 24 hours or 48 hours. Well, you've got the evil powers that be that are also working against him. And then, the Bible says what the Bible says, and the Bible is true. Wars and rumors of wars. However, there is nothing wrong with praying for those in leadership positions in government. The Bible asks us to do that. There's nothing wrong with praying for a peaceful life, praying that people don't get hurt, murdered, or whatever. There's nothing wrong with that. So I'm going to continue to pray about this, but I wanted to make sure that you all were aware of it. And again, there's so much information out here about Barack Obama and the billions of dollars that he sent over to Iran. And ever since 41 years ago, Iran has been chanting death to America, death to Israel, death to America. So what are we supposed to do? Just sit here and let our enemy just stockpile up all these weapons, able to attack us at any time they feel? We know from history what has happened. So we have to be ready. Okay, we have to. And President Trump is about protecting American life. I know the media demonizes him. I know the media does that. But I have another live stream tonight this evening at 6 p.m. Okay, Eastern. 6 p.m. Eastern, I am doing another live. I don't have time to really, do a lot of editing and adding the little extra things when I do a recorded video. So today I'm doing a lot of live streams, but I want to hear what else you all are saying about this. Let's see. Too deep. Who is too deep, too much? Let me see what's going on in here. Let me see. Oh, all right. All right. Let's see what we have. Look at how people are afraid to disagree with Trump as though he is infallible. Tulsi Gabbard said before Congress that Iran was no threat to the U.S. This was an unprovoked attack, plain and simple. I mean, we're allowed to have, our differences of opinion. And America believed it after they have already chanted boldly and openly death to Israel and America. Yeah, make it make sense. Iran was lying from the start, praying for President Trump and his cabinet. Me too. Yes. All right. Jackie Andrews. So here is what little I know. Obama and Bush are cousins. When Kerry was appointed with the deal, his daughter married son of the Iranian general military who was doing residency in New York, allegedly, of course. Allegedly. We got to say that word allegedly. Oh, thank you so much. We got rid of him. We get rid of pests. Friends, we have had the victory before the battle ever began. Fear not is written in the Holy Scriptures 365 times. All right. And it says, I just tried to print something and it was like I ran out of ink or something. Okay. Let's see. Well, whoever that person was, too deep to say. They said I was ranting and they didn't understand what I was saying. That's it. So y'all didn't like him, so I got rid of that person. But I wanted to present you all with what just happened in Operation Midnight Hammer, when our government struck 3 nuclear facilities, the 3 main ones in Iran, especially the Fordo one, which is the one with the most nuclear capabilities, underground, under a mountain. And I did a little history on Barack Obama and the funneling of money in pallets. It was on pallets. I saw forgotten history, a ton of money to Iran under his presidency. I'm so glad I did not make the mistake of voting for Barack Obama, but I made the mistake of voting for Hillary and Biden. Oh, Lord. We make mistakes. I didn't do it a third time. Vote for the wrong party. I did not. But I thank you all so much for watching this video. Don't forget to smash like, comment, share, subscribe, all the things. Also, you can follow me on Twitter as Linda B Podcast. Linda B Podcast. I'm also on Instagram and TikTok as ChatWithMeLindaB. Thank you all so much. You be blessed. Love God, your families, these United States of America. And as I always say, march on, warriors. Until 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern time, I have another video. Want to see you all